What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today once again we've got a bunch of topics to discuss for Destiny 2. There's some stuff about a rumble mode and a few others actually found inside the game that is very interesting. I also want to talk about some problems with duplicate exotics, the new fated engram that seems to be a bit broken, 3 of coins, and some other things definitely worth being aware of. So let's begin with the topic of rumble, which is a pretty interesting one and definitely to be taken with a grain of salt. It's by no means confirmed by Bungie, but it has been found inside the database, so take that as you will. Most of the time, things like this do end up being put into the game, and to be honest, I would guarantee Bungie do put rumble into the game eventually. It's definitely not a far-fetched idea at all, but again, it has been officially confirmed just yet. So with that said, Destiny Trials Report made a tweet a few days ago saying, "We found text in the recent update regarding new game modes for Destiny 2. These would include Rumble, Mayhem, and Elimination. Big fat disclaimer, that doesn't mean anything per se, but thought you'd all want to know." So if you aren't aware of who Trials Report are, they make a really good website that tracks a bunch of trials statistics, so you can see your own stats and bring up the team you might be facing to see if they're any good and what they're using. And they're also pretty well known for publishing basically the meta of trials, so they gather all the data of the weapons being used, how often, the percentages, and that's how we saw how many people were using the Midar, the Uriel's Gift, and Last Hope, and things like that. So they are obviously very smart people. They've been using the API for years since they started back in Destiny 1. The API, if you don't know, is basically the massive kind of host of data that Bungie give to these developers to actually run their sites. So that is where the data comes from. And the same way they get the data about trials, they also can see this info about the Rumble game mode. So it isn't just some random Reddit account trying to get attention. It's a pretty reliable source. Now, what makes this find a bit more credible is that they tweeted this out on Tuesday, a few days before Bungie announced Mayhem returning, so we had no idea it was coming back, and they tweeted this before then saying Mayhem has been found, and then of course Bungie announced Mayhem is going to be in the Dawning, so in the same way it's very likely Rumble and Elimination will also be added soon. I don't think they'll be in the Dawning, but they probably will be added in some time after. It's also worth noting this isn't leftover code because according to them, this was added in Tuesday's update, the second half of the December one. So with all the people going through the code since the launch, nobody spotted it. So this is definitely something Bungie just put into the game in the latest update this week. So it isn't really surprising at all to see Rumble come back. I think most of us do expect it to return. Elimination is actually an interesting one though, because that was of course the main trials mode for Destiny 1. Instead of planting bombs, you would just wipe each other out, and then if it goes to time, you cap the zone. But in Destiny 2, Countdown of course replaced it, which I do think is a better mode, but it would still be very cool to see Elimination back as well as a second option. I mean, Elimination doesn't drastically excite me that much, to be honest. It's basically the same thing as Countdown, just without the bombs. But the more variety in Crucible, I think the better. It desperately needs it. But what it needs more than anything else, I think, is definitely Rumble. It's probably the number one thing that I want the most in Crucible right now. I never understood why they took it out, and they didn't explain their reasoning either. But especially with Crucible being so crazily team-focused, it's just not friendly for solo players. So Rumble needs to be added ASAP, in my opinion. I see no downside of why it shouldn't. The maps are perfectly sized to make it like 5 or 6 players, so let's hope it arrives sooner rather than later. I doubt they'll wait into the second expansion to add it, and they definitely aren't going to make you pay for it with the DLC. The amount of backlash they got recently for the strikes and putting that behind Curse of Osiris, they aren't going to do that again. As a side note, we do know for a fact that both private matches and a competitive ranked mode are coming soon. We still don't know when, but Bungie did confirm early 2018 that those are coming, but Rumble is still up in the air. So something definitely to be aware of, that Bungie is experimenting with some more modes, and let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. So next up, let's talk about exotics, duplicates, broken engrams, and a bunch of weird stuff going on with Xur today. He actually arrived for the very first time inside the tower, not one of the planets. He was supposed to be inside Mercury. If you don't know, Xur is always on the Flashpoint location, but of course, people without the DLC wouldn't be able to reach him, so they put him inside the tower for this week, while Mercury is a Flashpoint. So as you probably also know, he's selling for the first time the fated engram, which of course guarantees you an exotic you don't already have, or at least that's what it's supposed to, but it doesn't seem to be working properly. There's been a ton of people reporting them getting exotics they already have, so it doesn't seem to work. It's kind of a waste of 97 shards for some people. For me personally, it did actually give me something I didn't have. I got the Shinobi's Vow, as you can see here, but for a lot of people, it's been giving straight up things they already have. It's pretty hard to figure out what's the cause of this and why certain people are getting exotics they already have, but Bungie haven't addressed it just yet. They probably will, but it's definitely a bug to be aware of. It is possible that maybe dismantling certain exotics or not having it inside the vault or your other characters may be causing the game to think you don't have it, and then the game gives you this through the fated engram. That could be a cause. It may also be a case where if you have all weapons, for example, but still need some armor, and the game tries to give you a weapon, it may give you a duplicate then. But it's a pretty confusing topic. I've seen people that are missing certain weapons for sure, and they still get a duplicate weapon, and vice versa with armor. So the bottom line is, of course, these aren't fully reliable. But putting the bugs aside, some info to note about this engram is that it is going to work only on 1 character per week. So you can't buy 3 per week. And also, it's only going to count for that certain character. So if you're on a hunter, for example, it's only going to drop you hunter exotics. From what I've seen so far, if you have all hunter exotics, for example, all armor pieces and weapons, it's still going to drop you a duplicate hunter piece rather than a titan or warlock exotic, even if you don't have it. So that's how it works. It doesn't cross classes, and that's one of the things I've been asked about the most. So hopefully that's cleared it up. Also, as an important tip, if you're trying to get the absolute most out of these and definitely want your highest chance at a new exotic, you should use this at the end of the week and not buy it right now. Try and grind the weekend for as many exotics, use 3 of coins, try and get as many as you can, and then open this one at the end of the weekend for your best chance to get something new. Also, something a bit contradictory is that the 3 of coins in themselves don't seem to work all that much, and they seem to be very unnoticeable, if they work at all, that is. I'm definitely not complaining because I don't think 3 of coins really need to be in the game, and I don't think exotics need to be easier, but as a buff, they don't seem to work all that greatly, and if they are hardly noticeable. I put one for a total of 4 hours and got 1 exotic in those 4 hours, and then a second time, and again I got 1 exotic. So they seem very, very subtle, if anything. But there's no actual buff that says 5 or 10% more chance. There's no guaranteed way to know if they're improving it or not. It's just a very psychological thing. It could be a placebo effect. Again, I don't mind that much, so I don't think exotics need to be any easier, but it's just worth knowing 3 of coins aren't that helpful. I think they're more just a system to make sure you spend your shards and make you think you're getting some more stuff. I mean, they cost 31 per coin, which is crazily expensive. You used to get like 7 for that. But let me know down below in the comment section if you've noticed a difference with them and your thoughts of 3 of coins. So next up, we're going to talk about a couple of updates that Bungie are working on to include in future updates. A lot of very good stuff. So this is coming from Christopher Barrett on Twitter. He, of course, is a Bungie developer. He's one of the lead developers of Destiny and Destiny 2, and in the past, he has been very active with taking community feedback and relaying it to the actual developers and putting them into updates. So a lot of quality of life things. So a couple of streamers were talking on Twitter about things they'd like to see and some improvements. Giggs was saying how he likes the Masterworks and would like to see it added to armor pieces. And then Christopher Barrett replied saying he would also love to see Masterwork armor too. So Bungie have said previously they do plan on implementing the Masterworks to armor, so it's definitely going to be happening. Now, Gathalion also said he would love to see an improved mod system, to which Chris said he would love to see a simplified and more interesting mod system too. So again, that's obviously going to be coming. He also clarified he meant streamlined, not just simplified. So I think those two exact things are pretty much what the mod system does need. Get rid of the blue mods, they have no purpose at all, and also make them more impactful so they actually change the gameplay. Right now they are very subtle, they have minor differences to the gameplay, but more interesting mods is I think exactly what we need. Also, in response to the picture of the Dawning Sword that I covered in yesterday's video, someone replied saying, very nice, but can you apply a shader to it? And he said, I'd love it if swords could use shaders too. I'm talking to the team about it for a future update. So again, very good news. I'm not sure why you can't put shaders on swords, but that's going to be a minor quality of life update that Bungie are working on. Now, speaking of quality of life updates, something Bungie recently added in their latest patch was actually a very small thing, but one we've wanted for literally years to make our lives a bit easier, and that's for the API to allow you to take things from your Postmaster. So sites like Destiny Item Manager, which is an amazing app to manage all your gear. I've used it since like 2015 when it came out, but you can now directly take things from your Postmaster and actually move them around, which is always impossible. So there's no longer any excuse for things to be deleted from your Postmaster or for it to be full, which used to happen a lot. I've lost several exotics and cool items when I'm farming, and it basically fills up. There are still a bunch of things like this the community has wanted for years, like the ability to delete things with item managers, or at least mark them for deletion. Not sure if Bungie will do this because of how things could go wrong, but at least we have the Postmaster thing, which is a start, I guess. Now, I also did want to mention SRL or Sparrow Racing League, which I think has been by far the one thing I was asked about the most since the Dawning was announced, and yesterday when we got more information about it. But a ton of you have been asking me if it's returning, if Bungie have mentioned it anywhere, or if some database items refer to it. Unfortunately, the answer is actually no. You would assume it to return because it has been a thing for the past 2 years right around now, but so far I wouldn't get your hopes up, otherwise you may be disappointed. I doubt Bungie are saving it to drop on us as a surprise. That would be very cool, and I wish that was the case, but it's just that by now we would have seen some things in the database regarding it, like we always do, and it is the sort of thing Bungie would want to announce to get people hyped. I know a ton of people really love SRL, so unfortunately it's not the best of news, but it doesn't mean it's not ever going to return. A lot of you may have noticed the Tree of Probability Strike on Mission, which basically has an SRL track on it. It's the same thing, and it is still a very big part of the lore that is mentioned regularly by Destiny 2 characters and items, probably more so than Destiny 1, to be honest. It's actually a very big part of the lore. Several Sparrows talk about it. There's Marcus Wren and other legends. Tess Everest talks about it, obviously. But I do think it's going to be in a different live update, maybe a summer event, but just because it isn't in the Dawning doesn't mean it's gone forever, but I just wanted to clarify that for those asking. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the roundup of several bits of info. As always, if you did, then like ratings down below are always much appreciated. Make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on if you aren't already to not miss out on my future videos. Gonna have a bunch more next week with a dawning event. In the meantime, you can click the image on screen right now to be taken to a recent Destiny 2 video I just made, and I'll see you guys next one.